Our Gospel reading this morning is from Matthew chapter 28. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." May the Spirit bless us with wisdom and wonder as we ponder the meaning of these words for our lives.
I don't know how well you sleep at night. Some of you may sleep the sleep of the dead. Some of you may have interrupted sleeps. Some of you might have to get up 3 or 4 times to go to the bathroom. Some of you might actually dream and remember your dreams. Or there might be certain questions that keep you awake at night. Questions that make you toss and turn. And often these are very, very big questions. Questions like, for example, what is the next disease we are going to cure? Now, the next disease is probably polio, because instances of polio have dropped 99% since the early 80s. And the vaccine for polio costs 14 cents a dose. And it's hoped that soon polio will be eradicated, and maybe smallpox might join that list as well. But then just over 6 months ago, a much bigger question arose. The question is, can Google solve death? And I know that all of you look at Google every day and you saw that question. Can Google solve death? If you purchased Time magazine back in, I think it was September last year, you would have seen that it had that as part of its cover. And it was a discussion about whether or not this particular internet giant can truly launch a venture to extend human life. Now, maybe we shouldn't be surprised, because Google is already in the business of making driverless cars, providing internet access through high altitude balloons, and now they've just launched a new company called Calico. And the focus of Calico is on health and aging. And Larry Page, he of the few dollars in the pocket, the CEO of Google, says, we should shoot for things that are really, really important. Things that in 10 or 20 years from now, we will have done. And so he said, at the end of all that, things like solving death. Now, any of you who are young enough might just live to that point. Those of you in your 80s could scratch your names off the list now. Those of us who are in our... Bruce, you've just turned 60. You've got a chance of living forever. Then again, Anne mightn't be too happy about that. Whilst it is not immediately clear what Calico will do, it is expected that with all the data it will collect and steal from us, amongst all that will be clues about age-related illnesses. And the company will start very small and then focus on all the technologies that belong to that. So why, asks this article in Time magazine, is Google spending untold amounts of money and time on a project that really flies in the face of the fact of the human condition as we know it? The existential reality with which we are all confident and aware, that is the certainty of aging and death. And the answer? Because no one else is interested in doing it at the moment. So let's step back a bit to the reading that Lesley just shared with us. Matthew tells us that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary go to the tomb of Jesus. The Sabbath day rest is over. It is dawn on the third day, the day when they can actually go out and do things. It's the first day of the week, and so they have gone to the tomb after having watched Jesus die. And so when they get to the tomb, they expect nothing but a tomb containing a corpse. After all, no one, according to their knowledge, has solved death. Now, there is something else that occurs. Suddenly there's a huge earthquake, an angel descends from heaven, rolls back the stone, sits on it. His appearance is like lightning, his clothing is as white as snow. And more surprising than Google Glass computers or driverless cars or whatever else, the angel is so stunning because he says the words that make not only the guards shake, but become like dead men themselves. And the angel anticipates what the women are wondering, because he gives to them the answer to the biggest question really of all time. Where is Jesus? And the truth is that I reckon each and every one of us wonders the very same thing in the days that follow the death of a loved one. Questions like, and I just pick them out and they're not perhaps particular. Where is my mother after her long and painful bout with cancer and her death? Where is my husband after the shocking heart attack that took his life? Where is my brother who was killed by a drunk driver? Where is my sister who died unexpectedly on the operating table? In short, where are all those who have been laid in a tomb? And to that the angel says, do not be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified, but he is not here. He has been raised and is gone. And so the women obviously wonder, where is Jesus? And the angel returns again to the answer. He is not here. The angel, in a sense, provides an answer to our biggest question. Following the loss of our loved ones, he tells us that they are not trapped in graves. They have been raised. And on Easter morning, we discover that the solution to death is not found in new technology. Instead, it is discovered in an empty tomb. It is, if you like, the resurrection solution. Jesus knew it was coming because Just prior, he said to his disciples, I will be mocked, flogged, crucified, but on the third day I will be raised. This is not just wishful thinking. This is what the angel invites the women to remember and to see, especially the place where Jesus lay. The tomb is empty. He is not there. But you and I know that that's not really a complete answer to the question, where is Jesus? Because if we were to make it very personal, we would not be satisfied by simply discovering that our loved one's body is no longer in the casket nor in the grave. Emptiness can only tell us so much. Much more important is the question, where is he now? And the angel answers that by saying, he is going ahead of you, always ahead of you. In the particular verse that is with us, the women are tasked with telling the disciples that Jesus is ahead of them. This is what the title means that he was given at his birth, which is the title Emmanuel. God is with us forward. And this is the Jesus who promises, who says over and over again, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age. And in a sense, the question of death is resolved, and the question of life is engaged. Jesus is God with us, life, death, forward life. It's not so easy to grasp, because so often when a loved one dies, our focus is on the past. Every time we attend a service that has to do with death, we are told and reminded of the good times. And then we struggle with our regrets. And we wish that we could have handled things so very, very differently, but there is no opportunity left to us. But with the resurrection solution, what Jesus is saying is that the focus is always forward. The focus is always to what is to come, not what was. And in a strange sort of way, that's what the Google philosophy is about as well. The company is always looking forward, trying, as its head says, its CEO says, not just to make the world a little better, but in his own words, to make the world a whole lot better. The resurrection for us and for all people is to give us a better future. The promise is that Jesus will meet us as we live our lives as part of the mission of the church, as we follow his guidance, if you like, as we work his will in the world. Just 3 chapters before this particular event, Jesus says, "Come, inherit the kingdom that I have prepared for you." How do you inherit that kingdom? How do you know everlasting life? How do you know resurrection life? Because when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I was sick, you took care of me. When I was in prison, a refugee, an alien, you visited me. The resurrection occurs when we care for the least of our sisters and brothers, because in doing that, we care for Jesus, and he is not dead, he is alive. Jesus meets us in this world. The resurrection is true whenever we do those things for someone else. Our own lives change we become the people we have been called to be. When we look beyond ourselves and our needs, we and the world change. When Jesus encounters the women on the road, he says to them in the way he acts and in his words that life does not end at the tomb. It continues with joy and clarity in restored relationships. He greets them joyfully. He tells them not to be afraid and lets them touch him to prove that he is alive. And then he says to them, "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee." Why? Because there's something he needs to do. When he meets the disciples there, he restores the relationships that were broken when all the disciples deserted him and fled. That's when resurrection occurs. When those who have been broken, those who have turned away, those who have become twisted and warped, when they re-encounter Jesus and Jesus restores full relationships with them, then they are resurrected. Then they are no longer dead. Then the world is no longer dead. Easter is a day of big questions, and for 44 years I have not been able to answer it. I've been bragging the last few days. This is my 44th Easter without miss. I know others have done it better than I have. But each and every year I am confronted by the three questions. Where is Jesus? Where is he now? And what is the future going to look like? The experience of Mary Magdalene and the other Mary teaches that the dead will not be trapped in tombs, but instead they will be raised. We now know that Jesus goes ahead of us, that resurrection life answers not only our questions about death, but also, and more importantly, our questions about life. Because through the resurrection of Jesus, we are given the promise of a future which is marvellous indeed. A future for this life and that which is to come. Google may be able to extend in some way the human lifespan. And advancements in that area would be certainly a tremendous accomplishment. But only Jesus can solve the question of death and offer a life which changes our lives now and for the future and for eternity. It is that which we call eternal life. It is that which we celebrate on Easter Day.